Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome to our coffee times together. Today I thought I would do a book recommendation video. I have noticed that a lot of people, now that we have been in isolation for a while, me personally, I have been now in isolation for a bit over 2 months, which is crazy, and some of us, including myself, have had periods of reading slumps because, you know, we just focused on other things and we were not able to focus so much on reading. So I was thinking I could make a video of recommendations of horror books that are under 300 pages. So I went to my Goodreads account and I looked if this year I had read any horror books that were under 300 pages, and I did find some. So I just wanted to give you some horror book recommendations that are under 300 pages in case that you also need to get over that reading slump.
It's coffee time!
So all of these books, like I mentioned, are books that I have read in 2020 already. So all of the books that I'm going to be mentioning here are actually adult horror, except one that I'm going to mention at the end that it's going to be YA. So just keep that in mind, you know, to know that these are all adult horror books. And the first one actually is a book that I read in 2019 and not this year, but I decided to include it for a very specific reason, and that is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. The reason is because we are getting a sequel to this book this year, so I thought if anybody had missed the book, now is the perfect chance to catch up with it. And also, if you've watched perhaps the movie and you enjoyed it, I can assure you that the book is a lot better. Now, most of the time it is, not always, but in this case the book is way better than the movie. At least it was for me. We are living here in a world in which one day basically the apocalypse comes to Earth, and people start to act weird, and the humans realize there is this kind of creatures that appears, and they realize if you look at them you go insane, you hurt yourself. And so the remaining survivors of these kind of apocalypse are trying to survive. They are hidden, they are covering their eyes to try not to see these creatures. So that is what it's about, and I really enjoyed it. This one is only 262 pages, so it is a short book. The next one is The Woods Are Dark by Richard Lehman with only 247 pages. Now, I do own a copy of this book, but I have lent it to a friend because he was really curious about this author that I enjoyed so much. So I just gave him this book and I was like, there you go, enjoy, thank me later. So trigger warnings here for a lot of stuff, especially like sexual abuse and all of these things, because Richard Lehman tends to be very graphic with all of those assaults. So, you know, just be warned here. In this particular book, we have the story of a little village that has some creatures called the Crow that lives in the woods, and they have a special agreement with them in order to maintain the peace. Like I said, Richard Lehman is very brutal. He doesn't hold back anything. So, you know, just if you're gonna go into this book, expect a lot of violence and brutality. The next one is one that I recently read and I thought it was so interesting, and I think it's an experience that everybody should have, and it has only 240 pages, and that is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Wright. And this is one of these books that I cannot really tell you much about the book because I'm gonna spoil the experience. But what I can tell you is that we're following a couple that is driving so that the girlfriend can meet the in-laws, and basically while they're in the car, we're hearing their conversation, we're hearing their thoughts, and we get to, you know, see these characters kind of question things in life, and it is so good. I love the writing so much. I read this in 1.5 days or so because it's very short and it was so engaging, and I just wanted to keep reading because the writing was so beautiful. So if you have not read this book, first of all, don't let anybody spoil it for you, and second of all, pick it up and give it a chance. Another recent read of mine has been Security by Gina Wolstorff, and this has only, I think, 229 pages, so it is fairly short, but it's very dense because we are following a hotel and part of the crew of the hotel. This is a hotel that is going to be opened. It is supposed to be the more secure hotel you've ever been in, with all of these security cameras all around. So some members of the staff are basically, you know, finishing up the last touches, finishing up the last things before the grand opening of the hotel. But suddenly there is a killer on the loose inside of the building. And one of the most interesting things about this book is that you get sometimes scenes from different cameras, and you get to see what every character is doing in which floor they're doing it. And it is also a really interesting way of telling a story. You know, some chapters have parts where you can see things through the cameras, so I thought that was kind of original and something fresh, and I really did enjoy that. So if you're looking for something very different, you might also want to give this one a try. Next we have Bloodlust by Catherine Sharp. This only has 178 pages. This is kind of like a thriller more than a horror, but it has a lot of horror elements because we're following here a serial killer that, you know, his victims are always really young and they're always displayed in really messed up ways. It is a very disturbing story, and we are also following the detective that is investigating these killings. I just would have wished that this book would have had less sex and more blood, if that makes sense, but expect here a thriller with some horror touches and a lot of sex. The next one is called Bottle Toss by Howard Odence, and I wanted to mention this one not only because it's short, I think it's 224 pages, but also because I haven't heard many people talking about it. And since the moment that I read this book, it's always been with me, and I really enjoyed that it was kind of nothing like I expected it to be. This is another adult horror, and we are following here a couple of foster kids that one night they throw a bottle to a car, and that has really severe consequences that it's going to change their lives forever. I absolutely love to see, you know, the foster kids and how they were telling their experiences and how it is to be a foster kid. There is mental illness representation here, and also there is something supernatural that comes in the middle of the book or so that makes the story just so great. I don't know, there was something about this book that made it really special for me. So this is again one that it is not your conventional horror story. It is more on the supernatural side, and I absolutely loved it. And the last one is the YA horror, and you've probably seen me talking about this book because it's another that I read fairly recently, and it's only 240 pages, and that is Daughters Unto Devils by Amy Lukavics. This is kind of, like I always say, a house on the prairie, but horror, because we have a family that is living in this little cottage in the mountains, and winters are getting way too cold for them, so they decide to pack all of their stuff and to go to find a nice house on the prairie where the weather is a little bit better. And when they move there in the house, there is things that start to happen that get very brutal as well, very violent, and I really loved it because it was again a story that was completely unexpected and it had great atmosphere. So this was it, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this short but sweet video on short horror books. I really hope that this helped you maybe to discover a couple of books you didn't know about, or maybe if you are yourself in a reading slump, you would like to try one of these horror stories. Remember, all of them are adult except the last one. I just want to stress that enough. Also, if you would like to see a video like this, me recommending short books but that are non-horror, please let me know in the comments down below, because I can also definitely do that for you guys. Also, let me know if you have any other short horror book recommendations for me. I can always use those as well, so let me know in the comments. And before you leave, if you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up for support, and if you want to follow me on the social media, as always, the links are down below, and I'll hope to see you all in the next coffee time. Bye!